Welcome, Betty Ann Howard. Thank you so much for joining us today. We so appreciate it, and we're really excited to talk about a subject that sometimes, especially with women, maybe gives us a little anxiety on occasion, financial planning and legacy giving. And you're an expert in this area. Maybe talk a little bit about, we were just talking about the fun of it. Maybe talk a little bit about why it should be fun.
As we were saying, that we all remember teachers in our lives where the content or the messages from the courses that we took, the ones that stand out. And those were the teachers who made the subject enjoyable, they made it interesting, it was practical, relevant, and you could just tell that they enjoyed the topic. So I think so often in financial services, well, there's several things. One is that unfortunately, it's a predominantly male domain, and that's not dissing men at all, but it was always that the financial advisors have all the information, because you have to have a lot of information, and then it's kind of, oh, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it for you. And because we made it complicated, and as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't have to be complicated, and that we really do, as an industry, need to find new and creative ways to engage with people around money. And that's why I have this course, Dancing with the Money Dragon, and that was lots of fun, and the course is lots of fun. And when it comes to legacy planning, another gap that we find is that people don't want to talk about dying, and they don't want to talk about their estate, and they want, just let my kids take care of this. And that is absolutely the wrong thing to do because it's too late at that point. And I think that what I'm passionate about is that we all need to be thinking about, who are we in this world? What kind of a future and what kind of a world do we want to build with our businesses? And it's a world I know that all of us want to be proud of. And I think that we should be able to build legacy planning into that it doesn't have to be complicated. We can take one step after the other, and it starts with recognizing, what difference do I want to make in my business? Like, we want to make a difference in the lives of other people. We want to have successful businesses. And I'm inviting and encouraging us to think a bit bigger about that, and to think about our values, what's important to us. How do we want to be remembered? And I think oftentimes we separate out the personal from the business in some ways, right? And so we rarely think about and talk about, what legacy do we want our businesses to leave? We sometimes, but have some trouble with it, thinking about it personally. So I think within our businesses, we rarely think about that. So I'm all about, let's start having the conversations about how we can build a world that we're proud of, that we want to be a part of, and that we can build with others who have similar values and want to create that kind of a world. So that's what it's all about for me. I know that was a very long answer to your question.
No, I just love that. And I think it feels like to me that people are becoming a little bit more clear that running a business is about doing great things, especially as an entrepreneur. It's about making change in the world and having an impact. But so many people are also sort of connecting their businesses to some sort of charitable giving, something that is like some of their profits, right? So, things that they feel are really important that they can contribute to. And I feel like I think that's like doubling your change, doubling transformation, doubling, impact in the world. And, but for us to do that, I think we have to really understand the best way to do it, maybe, yeah. Right? And you probably have some ideas around that.
Well, I think, first of all, we need to recognize that it's a process. that there's a process involved in this. And because I've been living and breathing this, the more I engage in meaningful conversations with people in the charitable sector and with other business owners, the more I start to see that the possibilities are endless. And it just becomes so expansive. And so because I started off by, always affiliating things that I wanted to do to support the community with a charity. And now it's gone beyond that. It's gone to this financial literacy course, for example, that we created. Who would be the best organization to benefit the most from similar values and similar outcomes? So would it be Kingston Literacy, Ottawa Literacy? Would that be a good partnership to have? Who else would be a good partner for us? What about the 1 million teachers in Africa? Would that be a good group to be? So it takes more time, and there's more of a process involved, if you will, around the conversation, so that there's an opportunity for growth within your business, within yourself, and within the agency. So I call what I used to do a one-off solution. Oh, I really like this charity. I want to support this charity. So I'll make charitable donations. I'll do this. I'll do that. To truly and fully have legacy integrated into my business, it's a bigger picture, and it's more of a process, right? Like, I have to keep asking myself really important questions about who am I best able to serve, how am I best able to serve them, and where does it make most sense for this synergy to happen so that we can magnify our impact. And I know that for a lot of business owners, when they're first starting out, they don't really have the time or the energy. And it is what I did. It's kind of the one off. And now that I'm seeing all of the other possibilities, it's absolutely magical, Andrea. It's magical, and it's so exciting. So I think that we can keep taking that next step and that next step to get us to this place of thinking in terms of, yeah, we're building a whole new world here, and how do we want to do that? So it's very exciting.
So I love what you're saying, and you kind of came through, you evolved, right? You started like most people do, hey, I'm going to give back. It's part of what I do. I had a business, actually. I had a local retail store that dealt with furniture, and we were giving to local furniture banks, when things would expire in our store or it just didn't work. And then we started giving money because we were like, wow, look at the impact of giving stuff. And what about giving money? So it became bigger, and it snowballed a little. And we were like, well, we can do more than just one organization. So that giving thing starts small, probably. But what would you tell people who are maybe emerging entrepreneurs, or they're newer to creating their business plans, let's say? Is there something that you would suggest that they do maybe early on, so that they don't do all this, they don't spend lots of time evolving, they can evolve quicker, maybe?
Yeah, great question. And I think some of it is to have a vision. And what is that vision for the kind of world you want to create? And then, as I was saying earlier, then who are the charities and who best to partner with? Because not all partners with not-for-profits or charities are going to help you have the impact that you want to have. And there are so many different ways that we can have that impact. So I would say, start with your vision around how you want to, like, what sort of world do you want to build, and what piece is your business going to play in that. And when you start sharing that vision, I truly believe that, and you're showing your commitment to that vision, then people want to join you to build that dream with you. And I think that, we can all imagine. Using our imagination, I think, is really important. I think oftentimes as business owners, and I'm guilty of this as well, that I can get so practical and so, you know, I have to do, what about this step? What about this step? And I think that to a certain extent, we can limit ourselves by doing that, and instead to kind of open it up and say, what do I imagine here? And then what's the one next step I need to take in order to get closer to that? And I think as business owners, we also need to do more collaboration with each other and more sharing with each other, and to explore. Like, I have found that any meeting I've had with charities and see the work that they're doing and the impact that they're having, I had no idea. I really had, like, hospital foundations and all kinds of different charities, Friends of the Earth Canada. I could go on and they're delighted. You know, start talking to people, have meaningful conversations. That's what I would say, that we need to have meaningful conversations with each other and with the people who are in the not-for-profit and charity sector, so that we can think expansively about where might I fit. And as you were saying, to have, you know, services that could be helpful for people in the not-for-profit sector. I'd say explore and discover and be curious and let it unfold. That may sound kind of airy fairy, but it really does. It as for a business owner, but it really is. It becomes very exciting when you start to see these things unfold as a result of being curious and having the conversations, and don't get stuck in I've got to do this and I've got to do that, but more stay open to the possibilities and talk to people about what might be possible.
So yeah, I really appreciate that you're kind of elevating the thinking. You're saying, hey, you know, don't stay small, don't think small, don't think about, you're kind of like saying be open, think big, talk, collaborate. I know a lot of, and like I worked with a woman who was my mentor and my business coach. She was involved in a charity that was broad reaching because she had a whole organization that was giving to this charity. So they were creating just massive impact. And then she had all the people that she was coaching, she would invite them to participate as well through her. And it was like this trickle down effect that got so many more people involved, and it felt like you were, you know, a small part of a super big thing. So maybe it wasn't your brainchild, maybe it wasn't you know, the thing that you thought of yourself, but it was an opportunity to participate in a big way with somebody else who's already done a lot of groundwork and a lot of the thought process and a lot of vetting, maybe
Mm-hmm.
even about best
Mm-hmm.
way to contribute to a charity for it to make the biggest impact. Because sometimes there's a lot of work involved in that. Wouldn't you
Yes,
say?
yes,
I mean,
yes, absolutely,
figuring out
absolutely.
how to
Yeah,
how to
I
optimize your giving.
yes, yes. And Andrea, I think another piece of this for me is about the, you know, there are a lot of issues, there are a lot of problems in the world. And I think that, so part of my thinking is about, do I do things from a what I would call a band-aid approach? Or do I start looking at what are the underlying issues and the underlying problems that are creating this issue? So I think from a money point of view, as you and I were talking earlier before you started recording, is that in financial services, I've been in financial services for 22 years. And as the industry started saying, oh, we need to start meeting women's needs, every piece of material that came out was comparing women to men and saying women need more like men. And I just hit the roof. And as I was saying to you, my lead magnet, as we call it, I don't even like that word that much, but my resource, um, on my website is very much a guide for women coming from what is an appreciative inquiry or a strengths-based approach. Because I think as women, I read this book back in 1982 called In a Different Voice, and Carol Gilligan is the author, and she was pointing out how psychology has always used men as the norm and compared women to men, saying basically, here's where we're deficient. And she said, we need a whole other lens when it comes to who we are and how we're socialized as women. And so that's what I've done from a financial point of view and from a money mindset point of view, is I've said, because I used to teach the psychology of women and I taught feminist counseling. And so I wrote this with the help of my web designer. And because I was so adamant that it had to be from a positive point of view and that we're building on women's strengths, because the number of women who have come to me for assistance who have said that they have sat there in a meeting and haven't understood a word that was being said to them, and they didn't feel comfortable speaking up. And I think that is so wrong. And it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with our industry. So similarly, I think from a legacy planning point of view, we need to find ways to make the language accessible, to make the opportunities possible to do things so that people feel welcome and invited into this evolution, if you will. So and similarly with the Dancing with the Money Dragon course, I'm just so people get bored and don't want to take an interest in learning things about money and all of that. And I think that is so wrong. Like, we're making such a big mistake. We have to find ways to make it interesting and fun for people. And so that's what I'm trying to do. That's what my vision is to make information. And this, I think it's also important to recognize that, because here's another question that I ask people to start this process, which is, who and what has made a difference in your life, and how have they made a difference? Well, I grew up poor and my father couldn't read or write. And that has permeated so much of it just gives me goosebumps right now, because clearly what I'm doing in my work is to change that, right? Like, I just think that it's so wrong to not be making information accessible for people. So that's, and I have many more stories about how I have taken who's made a difference in my life and turned it into something where I can have a big impact, either because I saw people making a difference or I saw the gap. And I thought, I'm very fortunate. I have a very successful business. I've been in business for over 22 years. I used to teach at Queen's University and St. Lawrence College. And so where there weren't the services, where there weren't the resources, then that's the gap that I'm wanting to address now that I'm at a place to be able to make a difference in the world and put resources towards that.
It sounds like you really have this sort of perfect confluence of background. You have, the fact that you've been a teacher, just makes you that kind of person that is giving. I feel like teachers are they're very benevolent in many ways, right? So you have this teaching, meaning you want to impart knowledge, you want to give to others, and then you have this financial background as well, and you put these two things together. So that's a pretty special, right there is a pretty special set of skills that make you particularly suited for what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is the woman side of things, which is, creating, understanding, because you're a woman, of course, but also how you grew up, that your circumstance is not your legacy. Your circumstance is not your life. It can be, you can change it. Isn't that sort of transformational? That element of it. I love the fact that your story is your story has a pretty big impact.
Yes, thanks. And I had 4 brothers. I
Well,
was the only girl. I was the only girl in a family of all boys. So, when I was growing up, I saw, lots of gender discrimination, if you will. So, yeah, and it really is about, as you're saying, Andrea, I could have taken my experience, the shame I experienced about being poor, and the way I spoke, and the clothes I wore, and the food we ate. I could have held on to that shame, but instead I, worked through so much of it. Jane Lowell was a significant part of that as well, and with her coaching, and just took it to a whole other place. And at the same time, I know where, when people talk about your purpose, looking for purpose and meaning in your life, you start to pull together the pieces and say, there's a theme here. And there's a reason why I'm so passionate about, like, my next step will be a course specifically for couples. And then also we'll be building on my website. So there's the Dancing with the Money Dragon, and then there'll be a course that will look at the strengths of each person in a couple, like assuming there are 2 people in a couple, because people tend to become polarized. And I think I come back to having it be more of a strengths-based approach, where you can benefit from each person in the couple, their approach to money. And then I'll be creating a legacy planning course too, so that I can demystify the process.
oh my gosh. And you have a book, don't you?
I do. It's called Making Your Dreams a Reality, Taking the Mystery Out of Financial Planning, Not the Magic. And yeah, so I think that book came out about 4 or 5 years ago, and I intend to continue to put material and books out that will demystify the process and make the information accessible and relevant. And I wanted to mention, because I'm surprised I forgot, I'm also planning a tax course, and I have no idea how we're going to make that fun. Because taxes are not fun.
But they're not fun until they're money in your pocket. Then they're fun,
Yeah. Well, it's another area of money, right? Where people just get, like, it isn't accessible, and it's tough for people. And I think we have to find ways to be able to make it more interesting. I imagine that I might have a story with an alien coming in from another planet, kind of going, seriously, I want to work and I have to do this. And just, I'm trying to find creative ways to impart information that people usually find deadly boring.
Well, if you just start telling money, are you telling stories about how somebody found $10,000? I mean, all of a sudden people kind of go, what? Wait a minute. And it's like everywhere. It's a common theme I see with entrepreneurs in general, whether they're women or they're men, is that they don't really understand, and they might not have a good tax person in their corner. They might not have somebody who understands really how to take a small business and proactively do things that put money back in your pocket. I've seen that a lot, and with the women that Valerie and I work with a lot of women, and they're like, I don't have a good person, and I'm like, that is, I mean, if you're talking about building a team, that's one of the most important people on your team, because if you structure things, as you know, properly, and it does sound kind of boring, but it's really great when you're able to, at the end of the year, go, wow, I just saved, I didn't pay anywhere near the taxes I paid last year. I mean, I love, being able to cut down what we have to pay, because we're doing like great things, right? And there's lots of ways. There's so many different avenues to explore, to be able to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I have a parallel comment, which is the same thing goes for charitable giving, which is part for me of legacy planning. So there are so many ways and so many different ways that people can do that, to the point where I've said, I've presented something, well, what about this? And they go, why has nobody told me this? And I'm sure you and Valerie hear this a lot as well.
Yeah.
And clearly you're enthusiastic about, helping people and explaining to them who all they need to have on their team. So that's fantastic.
And the other thing is, I guess money's just a tool. I mean,
Yes.
money, the whole reason to understand your relationship to money is because it's just one of those tools in your business. And it's a tool that allows you to make choices in your life, right? Choices that impact yourself and your children and your family and others. And that's why, when you say legacy planning, that to me that's so big. I mean, it gives me goosebumps a little bit, because it makes it's something that goes way beyond yourself and way beyond a little bit of help you can provide to other people. I mean, when you talk about legacy, that's kind of a look back sort of thing, where you kind of go, you couple it with the purpose. You talked a little bit about, Betty Ann, you talked about purpose, and that if you can go deep with that purpose and then kind of couple that with something about your continued purpose, being able to, yeah.
Exactly. You said it beautifully. Yes. And I wanted to add, Andrea, to what you said there, is that it helps to recognize that we have a relationship with money in the same way that we have a relationship with food, and we have a relationship with ourselves and with other people in our lives. So we have a relationship with money, and that's where we came up with the concept of the money dragon, and why we're saying we need to learn how to dance with our money dragon instead of fighting or flighting, to be able to say, would you like to have this dance, and start the process around having a beautiful relationship with your money.
That's a great visual. Thank you for just reminding me. I mean, I love your title now, because it makes me, dancing with the money dragon. It's kind of like, I mean, dancing is a pleasurable activity, right? And it makes you it sort of intrigues you a little bit more when you think about that title, because it makes you go, now, what? Wait, what does that mean? Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I really love that.
Thanks.
So it sounds like, Betty Ann, that you are, like, you have so much information to impart. Do you consult with people? Do you help? Do you coach people around finances? And
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can find out, there's more on my website, bettyannhoward.com. And there's all of the different areas, because I'm a speaker and I'm a financial planner, with a very unique approach. And all of the information is there, including you can sign up to learn more. We don't have time to send out a lot of emails, so if you sign up, we'll just let you know when we have new courses coming up and things like that. So I encourage people to go to my website to learn more and see more about what it is that we're doing.
Yeah, and so folks that are watching this video, just below here, you have a link that gets you right there. You don't even have to remember anything. You can get right to Betty Ann. You can connect with her. You can talk to her about, some of the different resources she has. You can, maybe explore things in terms of, I mean, she's obviously a wealth of knowledge, and she's going to be fun. That's the best part. Because you don't want to sit there and go, okay, let's talk about the profit and loss statement. It's kind of like, how about let's have a spirited and fun conversation about where you want to go and what you want to do. And I mean, I wished I'd known you when I started, because it took me the school of hard knocks to get myself educated about money and taxes, and And frankly, I haven't really even considered, I've considered the word legacy, but I haven't really thought about it in the way that
Hmm.
you're bringing. I have to say thank you so much just for this conversation. I'm so excited because I'm now thinking differently about, bigger things, how to do,
Wonderful.
yeah. So
And and Andrea, and I'd love to have another conversation with you because that was actually part of my plan was to ask you the question and we could start doing some exploring. So about who and what has made a difference in your life and how have they made a difference.
Mm,
So we'll leave that conversation perhaps for another time because I love having that conversation with people. And that's certainly what has made a difference in my business. In the last 4 years, we have directed an additional $5 million to charities as a result of the questions that I've been asking and engaging in these conversations that wouldn't have happened if we, and it's not pressure, it's the conversations end up leading to places that I had no idea. And it starts to stir up the feelings and the emotions about what do I want my legacy to be? And once you start having those conversations, the possibilities are, and I mean, they're beautiful. I love what I do because I just feel so fortunate that I can hear other people's stories and who and what made a difference. Stories like a client of mine who I didn't even know that their child had been born with a hole in his heart, and they were provided support, and that's the charity they wanted to support. And then other people who want to support organizations because of what they went through. I had one woman who was a retired principal at a school who said if it hadn't been for sports, and it came out of this question, and she said if it hadn't been for sports, she never would have gone where she had gone. It made all the difference in the world in her life. So I said, okay, so then what might you like to do? What are your thoughts about how you might like to do something with that? So it's fascinating to have these conversations with people, and I love it.
it sounds like you are a mind opener. You ask the right questions, which is really what a beautiful coach and mentor is all about. And you get people to think differently. And that is a special gift. So I just want to thank you so much, Betty Ann, for coming and being part of this incredible summit of people. I we're so blessed to have you. So everybody just connect with Betty. She's going to make a difference in your life. It's totally awesome.